This is episode 4 of English Voiceover in Asia. I am your host, Yui Haruhara, and today's guest is Michael Pizzuto, our first guest that's worked in Hong Kong. Yes, Hong Kong has an English dubbing scene and has for a long time, not just for anime, but also kung fu and kaiju films. That's Japanese monster movies like Godzilla. Not only is Michael experienced in doing Hong Kong dubs, but these days he's living in America doing dub work here. Michael also does live action work and stage productions. People familiar with Hong Kong dubs may know Michael for Kururu in Sergeant Keroro, Hiroshi Nohara in Shin-Chan, and Michael's personal favorite, Moon in Linetown. He's also been in the Hong Kong dubs of Yokai Watch, Dr. Slump, and Baccano. Michael and I first got in touch in September of 2020 when I was beginning to do research for my massive Full Metal Alchemist videos, which you should check out on YouTube if you haven't already. I was researching the dub by SDI Media in Hong Kong. Michael wasn't in it, but did help on other videos. This isn't even my first interview with Michael. I invited him on for a roundtable interview with voice actors Peter Doyle and Chuck Huber in 2021, who have both also voiced Hiroshi Nohara on Shin-Chan, so it was an anime dad roundtable. Each dub these actors were in is drastically different, with Peter's being aimed at kids, Chuck's being aimed at adults, and Michael's being the most accurate to the Japanese version relative to the others. You can watch that on YouTube if you're interested. The interview today focuses on his career overall. Without further delay, here's my interview with Michael Pizzuto. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Michael C. Pizzuto.
Where are you originally from?
Originally born in Michigan, raised in the outskirts just outside of Detroit, in the suburbs of Detroit, and grew up there, went to school there, and school in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
Oh, yeah, Youper.
Oh, yeah. Oh, say yeah to the UP.
And where do you live now?
Currently, I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay. And at one point, you lived in Hong Kong.
That's right. I was there for about 13 years.
Wow. Why did you move to Hong Kong?
Well, it started off as a one-year adventure, really. I was only planning on going out there for 1 year, and it was while I was at a theater company in Ohio, of all places, and I knew that I was going to end my contract with that company, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I decided that, well, I better look for a job online because my plan was to move to Los Angeles. And this was way back before Hong Kong. But before the whole rich and famous part comes along, I got to have a job to pay the bills, right? So I'm looking on monster.com and I'm looking for some sort of maybe theater box office or theater related job. And I see this possible job in Hong Kong, advertising in the Los Angeles area. But I think, well, what the hell? I'm never going to get that, but what the hell? I'll give it a shot anyway. Next thing you know, I'm being interviewed and being put on contract to do a 1 year stint with a theater company in Hong Kong. And while I was out there, I had everything I owned in storage in the States because it was just, it was supposed to be that 1 year adventure. Then I'd come back and start my life in Los Angeles. But once I got out there, I just kind of fell in love with Hong Kong, and it became a place where I was able to start doing a lot of voice work. I was initially doing mostly stage work for the first year that I was there, and then the longer that I stayed, I was on stage at one point, and somebody had seen a show that I was in and asked me if I ever had any interest in doing voiceover work or animation. I thought, well, sure, absolutely, I would. So next thing you know, I'm auditioning and being part of a group that did dubbing 5 to 6 days a week back then. So I ended
Wow.
up staying much longer than just my 1 year. 1 year became 2, then 3, then 4, then eventually 13 before I ended up back in LA.
Yeah, why'd you move back to LA?
There was a lot of different factors involved. One of them being that a lot of the work was, sorry, I got a chihuahua in the background
Aw.
greeting a UPS person at the door. But anyway, just in case you hear some random barking. Um, but what happened was a lot of businesses and companies that I was doing voice work from uh, moved out of Hong Kong. A lot of the dubbing went away.
Mm.
Um, a lot of stuff, Turner Broadcasting, Turner Asia, which owned a lot of the, companies that I was doing promo work for. I was the voice of True TV Asia and, Cartoon Network Asia, and they up and moved to
Wow.
Singapore.
Huh.
So, with that being gone, unfortunately, that was, missing. Then, Hong Kong government has gone through a lot of changes in the
Hmm.
last 3 to 4 years, and unfortunately, one of those changes meant that my, radio show that I had on the public TV radio was kinda like the equivalent of NPR in Hong Kong. It was Radio Television Hong Kong. They got rid of my English-speaking radio show, along
Oh
with a
my
lot of
gosh.
other English educational programming, and so that went away. So long story short, it was just a lot of the work that I was reliant on and having became few and far between. And so the next step in my career would be to head over to LA. And it's been a great transition. I'm very happy that I did it. I've been staying quite busy in the acting world since my move here.
That's good. When did you move to LA?
When?
Yeah.
Well, 3 years ago, I made a transition over here, but I was still going back and forth to Hong Kong.
Mm,
So I actually had an apartment in both Hong Kong and in LA, and I do, a trip back every 2 months or so,
mm.
back and forth. Um, but about yeah, so it's been about 2.5, 2 years since I fully moved out here.
Okay, well, you picked a good time to.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Yeah, so you have quite the wealth of experience. What other positions or jobs do you have or have you held, like writer or anything else?
Uh, in Hong Kong, I used to help adapt scripts. I used to write scripts. I did a lot of that for various shows, but it was not one of the more fun things that I wanted to do, and so
Yeah.
I've been I haven't done that since I've been here in the States. A little bit of pre-production, with scripting and stuff like that, but, um, for part-timing, but for the most part, I've just been, sticking to either acting for camera or voice acting.
Wow. What do you do in your free time?
Well, that's a good question. I love going to do antiquing,
Hmm.
and I love going to these estate sales. That's one of the main things I loved it ever since I've been out to LA. I've been on this estate sale kick where there's a website and you see all these estate sales happening in LA, and you can go to all these homes, and some of them are just, your average, working middle class homes, and then some of them are Beverly Hills mansions with real Picassos on the wall being
Wow.
sold for a few $1,000s each, and just getting the chance to see all of LA, by going to these, it's I don't know, it's been kind of a fun thing that I've been doing recently that I really enjoy and collecting things here and there. I have a collection of records and
Oh,
collection of Don Quixote items and stuff like that. So sometimes I can find those things at those estate sales.
wow. That does sound like fun.
Yeah.
So, how did you get your start with professional work? Like, how old were you, and what was like your first gig?
Voice wise, or you mean
Oh,
acting
just
full
just in
stop?
just in general.
Well, I started off as a teenager doing theater, and my mom did theater before me, and I started getting a paycheck to do theater when I was 16, and so then I went off to college to study theater, and the most part, I didn't really get into voice acting until much, much later. It was while I was at a theater in Ohio that I was mentioning before my move to Hong Kong, and I started doing some commercial work, voice work that for different radio spots and things like that. But it wasn't until I got to Hong Kong that I started really doing animation work, and that's when it all kind of the whole world exploded for me and all the possibilities of various things like promo work and radio show, and every bit of voice work they can think of. A lot of dubbing. And one of the things that, aside from dubbing animation and live action as well, that they do is some what they call walla and ADR work. Did a lot of that. Some things that, people might not know, work that is done in Hong Kong. You see, in China, there are limitations to what you can have on the screen as far as what you can say. Hong Kong has, uh, pretty much so far, who knows what's gonna happen by the time this airs, but so far they have a lot of freedoms as far as what they can play, on the big screen or their TVs. But mainland China, for example, you can't talk about revolution,
Hmm.
or you can't talk about, um, you can't speak bad things about Russia even. So there's some things that you have to replace the wording, and we would go in and do a lot of voice, replacing different words in movies before they hit the big screen in mainland China. Or, they would just change the entire scene altogether sometimes,
Oh
and we
my
would have
gosh.
to talk about something completely different. But that wasn't just for China, that happened a lot in Asia, especially, there were, certain countries where, you know, um, that are very religious, and, for example, uh, you know, there are parts of Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei that we couldn't talk about certain things like alcohol, or you couldn't talk about, uh, gambling. So there was one episode I remember of a show where it was all about winning the lotto, and everything had to be changed to winning a contest, and it just had to be made up into, like, something completely different. You can't talk about magic, so it has to be abilities, so there's
Oh my gosh.
different countries' censorship and restrictions that we don't really even think about over here because we don't have to worry about that, but it did, in a way, create voice jobs in Hong Kong.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
But, yeah, so that's kinda.
Yeah. Um, so what is it like doing voiceover work in Hong Kong as an English speaker?
Well, you definitely get to be big fish in a little pond, you know? It's not that there's no one that speaks English there, but a lot of people, don't realize that just because you have acting experience or because you like anime that, you know, there is a training and there is a skill to doing voiceover. So
Mhm.
when you have a small amount of people who are skilled at it, who know what to do, how to speak into a microphone, how to read a script, how to do all these things in an efficient way. There's a small amount of people that know how to do that. So if you're a skilled voiceover actor and you know what you're doing and you have a great demo and you move to Hong Kong, you're going to get a lot of work because you become big fish in little pond over there. Um, but that being said, there's no SAG-AFTRA over there, so there's no union looking out for you. So you have to basically look out for yourself and make sure that you're not being ripped off. You kinda have to keep your ear to the ground and know what is the fair rate for certain things, because there's no standard of anything. So, it's tough if you go in there completely blind and not knowing anybody, but luckily I got to work with a great team from early on, and
That's good.
the voiceover community, pretty much everyone knows each other, and it's the same 12 people that do all the voice work in Hong Kong. There's 7.5 million people in Hong Kong, but about the same, I don't know, 8 to 10 people do all of the English stuff, there. And so that's, if you're, uh if you're out there and you know what you're doing, that you can make a good living at it.
Yeah, I noticed everyone kind of is in the same projects together. When I was talking to Catherine a day or two ago, she said it was always her, Lily Tronkale, and Muriel Hoffman were they're always in like the same projects.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And if they included men in there, I was usually part of that crew too. So, but
Yeah,
it's all about quantity and how much can we get done in a short amount of time over there. The upside of that is that in, the 13 years I was there, I was in over 60 different, anime shows, different 60 different series. The downside of that is that everything is very rushed. It's very, "Okay, hurry up, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done." Sometimes that means depends on who's directing and everything and who's producing it and everything, but sometimes that means quality is hurt a little bit too. Whereas I do find, to answer your question, and one of the things that's different in LA is they want to get it right and they
right.
want to make sure that you're taking a look at it, you understand the scene before you jump into it. There, it's just like, don't even look at the scene. Okay, now we're going to page 10. You're a wizard on top of the hill. You're really angry, and let's go. And you're like, oh, okay, okay. You just got to jump into it. And that was one of the things that kinda threw me when I first moved out to LA is like, "Oh, you're letting me watch the scene first before I just
Huh.
jump into it and do the." I'm like, "Wow, that's great. Oh, you're telling me what's actually happening to my characters? Wow, that's amazing." So, yeah, a lot of the stuff ends up being rushed, and done really, really quickly because they have a short amount of time to do things. It's just like it's factory. It's like the McDonald's of dubbing. It's like, how many burgers can we get out in a short amount of time?
Wow. Yeah, that's very different. I did not realize that you didn't get to look at the screen of what's going on in the show.
Most of the time, I would say no. It's just like it was just like you were seeing it all for the first time, and you were just giving it a go, and you were just trying it, and you know, and if you were totally off, like all of a sudden your guy starts screaming and running down the road, and you're like, "Oh, okay, I wasn't expecting that." And then, okay, you do it over again, and this time he's gonna be screaming and running down the road. But it's weird because after, like, years and years of doing it, you almost kinda get in the habit of just chasing what they call chasing it, and just, as it changes, you adapt to whatever's happening, and you just go. So it's difficult, but, kinda like playing an instrument. The more that you do it, the easier it is and better you get at it. But I think that's kinda one of the it was kinda I kinda consider all that time that I spent in Hong Kong my boot camp for the real world of voice acting when I came to LA here.
Yeah, that's a great analogy actually, just based on what it sounds like.
Yeah.
What is the casting or audition process like in Hong Kong?
Uh, well, for the most part, because there's just the same, 10 to 12 people that do everything, the directors just directly contact you and be like, I got this show for you. We're gonna do it on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, mornings and afternoons. Are you available? No? Okay, let me ask David. And so there's not really much of an audition process. Um, Now, when it comes to that's for, like, the dubbing and stuff like that, because everyone knows these people have the ability, they work with these people. They know, "Oh, he can do boy voice, he can do, old man voice, he can do evil voice. That guy can cover these characters that I need." So it's a lot different than how it is in LA. LA, you're having to audition for everything, you're competing against, in LA, I'm a grain of salt on a sandy beach of talent. There's a million voice actors out here. Um, but in Hong Kong, it's quite different. The only thing I would say is that if it's not a dubbing or an anime type of situation, if it's, say, a radio commercial or like a corporate internal video or something like that, voiceover in Hong Kong, then they will cast based on your demo.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll have you audition, but very infrequently. In Hong Kong, they just want to hear like your demo reel. Okay, this person can do our, Shanghai Steel Corporation, corporate video, and they'll hire based on just that.
Wow. Yeah, so you've got knowledge of both sides. You don't just know Hong Kong because you're doing LA work now, so you know what
Yeah,
it's like in both.
sure.
So that's great because some of the people who are interested in this only know the American side.
Right,
So
right. Yeah.
yeah. When you were recording in Hong Kong, did you need to make any adjustments to the script in the booth, or was it good already?
Oh, no, there was always adjustments that were being made. So it depends again on the production, but now if you get a great script writer, then you don't have to do a lot of adjustments because it's written as a science. There's a different punctuation that would show, is it one small beat or is it a dot, dot, dot? Is it a comma? Is it how long do I pause? Things like that. These lines mean that it's going to be off screen. So I don't have to look for my mouth in that, and different things. And it wasn't until recently, I guess in the last maybe 5 years, that they started using the script on the actual screen, kinda like a karaoke,
Oh.
where you would where they call it the rhythmo band or, there's the words that move across like a
Oh.
karaoke screen, and then, when the words hit a certain line on the screen, just like in karaoke, you should be saying that word in order to fit the mouth perfectly. But before that, before like 5 years ago, at least definitely in Hong Kong, we always just had paper scripts and, we would have to follow along and adjustments would be made all the time. Sometimes they'd be like, "Oh, no, this is gonna air in Indonesia. We can't say magic. Let's change this to blah, blah, blah." And then sometimes it would just be like, "No, it's just not working." The writer just didn't add enough words, and so sometimes, when you're doing it, as long as, as we would just add something and 99 times out of 100 would, you know, it would be approved. We didn't have to, like, get it, checked and send it to corporate or anything like that, but that's one of the things here in LA. It's very different. It's up to the director to if they but even in LA, sometimes words, the scripts aren't 100% and there's a few extra flaps of the mouth and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna need to rewrite that." And it's up to the director to give you the new dialogue.
When you're recording in Hong Kong, are there other actors with you in the booth, or are you by yourself?
Uh, Again, that depends on the studio and the director and what they wanna do, and also what you're doing. So, for example, of course, this is all pre-COVID days. If you're doing Walla and you're doing a lot of group scenes, if there's a lot of battle scenes, fight scenes, things like that, then you're gonna have a group together. Um, there there was a sense of, let's just bring in 3 people in the booth at a time, even if there weren't those fight scenes, just because it's time efficient.
Mm.
So, sometimes you would sit there with 2 others, sometimes, 3 others, crowd around the table. When it would come to your line, you would interact off of each other in very close quarters. Uh, and then that kind of that changed throughout the years, and then they started doing just like, "Well, let's get 1 person at a time to do all of your stuff." And so that's, I think, pretty much how it's done now, is 1 person at a time in the booth, unless it's, the group Walla battle scenes, things like that.
Okay. On that note, speaking of, pre-COVID, what is the recording process like now in LA?
Currently, studios have opened back up.
Okay.
So, when the shit hit the fan, March of, 2020, everything shut down, and at that time, I was involved with a couple different shows. And we didn't really know what was gonna happen, and the studios were saying, "Well, let's just wait this out. It might be just, like, over with in 2 weeks or maybe a month," you know? Let's just, kinda wait, and then it became, "Okay, well, this isn't going away anytime soon, so maybe we'll send you equipment because we want all the actors to sound like they're, coming from the same microphone, or they want, from the same equipment." So the first initial thoughts were that I was going to have almost 3 different studios in my home, 3 different microphones, 3 different, interfaces, blah, 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 because they all wanted, you know, each show to be technically just like everybody else. And then every voice actor that existed, if they didn't already have one, you were getting your home studio set up
Mm.
because not only are you auditioning on a daily basis, but now all the work was gonna be from your home studio, and if you did not have a home studio setup, you were not gonna be able to work, and you couldn't just have you can't just have a USB plugged into your
Yeah.
laptop sitting on your desk at home. You had to have, the real deal, and so people were I made an investment of a few $1,000s, to for my setup, and I'm glad I did because it paid off in the end, but, a lot of people were kinda tossed into that, right around that time, March, April, and there were some production houses were like, "Ah, you don't have a proper setup. Sorry, we can't use you," you know? Um, but now it's more or less they'll give you the option. They'll say, "We prefer you come into the studio because it's easier, it's more time, and, eh, but they'll say, "If you can't or if you're not feeling well or, whatever, we'll do it from your home studio." So, but I personally, I prefer going in the studio. I prefer being there, um, interacting with the tech, the director, everybody that's involved, and, I enjoy that more, so I
Okay.
go in whenever I can.
So, what are some favorite projects you worked on?
Most recently, I had this, I didn't have one of the major lead roles in it, but Super Crooks, I'm watching it right now, just aired on Netflix, and I got to do some voicing in that, which was a lot of fun. Some of the stuff the past things that I've done, I have worked on, King and Ashura, which was a lot of fun. One of the past, things that I did for, like, Disney Asia, Disney XD that I when I was out there, I had a lot of fun with Town and playing, a character in Town, which they have an actual Town store in Hollywood here and also in, New York as well as in,
Wow.
Seoul, Korea, and I remember going into the store because I was so excited. I played the character Moon, and I wanted to go in. I wanted to get, like, uh, a little Moon character, just a, a little figurine just to have and put on my little table of characters I've done, little toys, and, and I go in there and there's every now my character was in literally every single episode. So it wasn't like a sub character or anything, but they didn't have a single toy
Oh my
for the
gosh.
character of Moon. And I'm like, why is there no Moon? There's like every other character, but no Moon. And you're killing me. And finally they were like, oh yeah, we found this keychain and here's the stationery and it's got Moon's photo along with the others on the station. I'm like, oh man. I was like, and I was like, "What? Why is it that there's no?" "Oh, yeah, it's just one of our least popular characters, and, we don't get a lot of
Oh, that's awful.
Like, "Oh, kill me now. Oh, what are you gonna do?" So, but it was a lot of fun doing it, even if I didn't have any toys made of me. Whatever. Oh, well, what are
And for
you gonna
the
do?
listeners at home, Michael and I have talked before. I had a stream where he, Chuck Huber, and Peter Doyle, who all played the dad on Shin Chan, got together and talked about their individual times on the show because they had three different versions of the show. And I loved you and Shin Chan. That was a wonderful performance.
That's a fun yeah, that was definitely a fun show. That's, there's been a lot of different versions of that show,
Hmm.
so I'm sure people have their fan favorites or whatever one they like the most, but we had a blast doing that at Red Angel Media
Hmm.
in Hong Kong, and, that's a great studio to work with.
Yeah, I've noticed they put out some great stuff.
Mhm.
How about some least favorite or alternatively most challenging projects you've worked on?
Well, I don't wanna say least favorite. I don't wanna bash anything I've done because there's certainly been a large array of horrible quality stuff that just comes through, especially when I was working in Hong Kong with, like, things that educational cartoons that came out of mainland China.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I'm not gonna name any names because I don't think that's fair. Uh, but I will say, okay, so challenging in a fun way was for Animax one time, we had, I did a show called Yakatati, Japan, where it was the show was all about making bread.
Huh.
And that's the entire theme of the anime. In every episode, there was like bread making competitions and chefs and stuff. And again, without really knowing the show and without being seeing too far ahead, I was given a character, what they would just call a one-off. Here's a one-off character. He's gonna be a goofy character here, and then we're never gonna see him again. So like don't give it much thought, just throw it out there. And so it was like this wacky clown character that I did my thing and voiced him. And next thing we notice, okay, he's back in the next episode. Oh, interesting. By the near the like the last third of the series, its show became almost exclusively about this clown, which I was like, "Why? Why did I get?" And I had what we call voice regret, where it was like, "Why did I use such like a horrible, wacky voice for that character
Oh
that's
my
so
gosh.
it was so freaking annoying, and I hated doing it myself, but I was like but I had already dug my own grave. I had no idea that it was gonna turn into this, character lasting as long and big as it was, but that's what you get for not researching it, I guess.
What's your favorite kind of work? Like, do you like doing anime, video games, live action?
Yeah, no, definitely anime and video games are my favorite, I think. It's something that especially when I love just, if I voice a game and if I can find someone who's, playing it and recording themselves and then putting it on YouTube or something like that, and they'll have commentary about my characters or what we're saying or, it's just it's kinda cool to see other people playing, you know, a game and hearing your voice in it in a way, I don't know, there's just something about that. It's just fun.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, and the animation, I love the fact that you can do, multiple voices in one single episode, and for the most part, usually the audience is fooled and doesn't realize that's the same person doing all those different voices. Um, but with live action, not that I don't like it, of course I do enjoy it, I do a lot of it, but you have to have a more natural voice. You can't really do silly voices, you can't really change your voice too much. You have 1 or 2, maybe 3 different pitches that you can use in live action, but, you know, I can't talk like this if I'm in a live action film. So,
Who do you look up to in your field of work? Like, who inspires or who has inspired you to do what you do?
uh, well, I started off, like I mentioned earlier, as a theater actor. I studied theater. Theater was my main thing. I do consider myself an actor, not just a voice actor,
Right.
because I do film, television as well, and voice acting happens to just be one of the realms that I do. And I, I would say that early Disney for me was one of the things that inspired me. And as far as the voices go, Robin Williams
Hmm.
was an idol of mine, and I loved him growing up. So getting to see him, for example, as the genie in Aladdin was just so much inspiration there of being able to all these silly, goofy voices and the energy that he brought to him. And I thought, wow, how exciting would that be to possibly do that someday to bring a character like that to life. So I would say early Disney from the late 80s to 90s was what inspired me the most.
What do you do to warm up your voice?
Uh, well, I guess, I'm pretty bad at that. It depends on what I'm gonna do. So if I know I don't know if it's warming up so much as it is there are things that I won't do. For example or things that I'll do ahead of time. For example, I'll make sure I'm hydrated. I'll make sure that I'm gonna
Yes.
drink a lot, and I'll make sure I'm drinking the right stuff and not like a full glass, like a milkshake or something of dairy that can cause a lot of phlegm or anything like that. So, I may enjoy you know, there may be a cold glass of milk that I would love to have, but if I know I'm gonna do a session, I'm not gonna drink it.
Hmm.
Same with alcohol. I'm not going to get sussed or liquored up the night before if I have, if I have a morning session. I don't smoke, I'm not a smoker, I'm not,
Good.
but, I know I'm not gonna go around a smoky bar, hang out with friends that are smoking if I have a session the next morning too, because it's gonna affect my voice a bit. So, there's a little bit of things that you can prepare for. Like, do I go in and start doing me, ma, ma? No, I don't do all that shit. I know a lot of people do, that works for them, great. But, for me, I just make sure that I'm prepping myself, making sure I'm hydrated, making sure I'm not, sabotaging myself with things the night before or whatever, or prior to the actual session. And it also depends on the type of thing that I'm doing too. If it's a say if they need a deeper voice, it's down here or something of that nature. First thing in the morning might be better for me for a deep voice.
Mm.
Whereas if I need to sing or if I need to reach a really high pitched thing, the afternoon when I've talked a bit more and my voice is warmed up. But I also know that I have to limit my auditions prior to a voice session too. So if I have a lot of auditions, the first thing is the actual paid gig that comes first. So I don't want to shoot out my voice by doing 6 auditions, in the morning and then come afternoon I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready. Let's do this thing."
Yeah.
That kind of defeats the purpose. So I usually if I have a voice session, I don't do any auditions until late at night and then before I go to bed. And, that's the best timing for me.
Okay. Now it's moving on to a section I have about specific projects. I asked my fans if they had any specific questions for you. We talked about this a little bit before, but what do you remember about working on Bakano?
Oh, yeah. Um,
It's
well,
all right if you don't remember.
no, I remember it being a really cool, like, gangstery type of show, which I thought was a lot of fun, like, the whole, um but there were there were multiple dubs of that, and we had the Animax dub, the
Mhm.
lesser known dub
Yeah.
of it all. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, but that was one of the very first ones where I got, I felt like I got to do some real acting and to use my natural voice a lot of times, for some of the characters, um and I like the fact that it's like it was this gritty show, and that
Yeah.
it wasn't, that yeah, there were some really good moments of that. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
Good. I've been told multiple times to see the show, but I have yet to. I know some of
Mhm.
the Animax dub is found.
Yeah?
Um, yeah,
I
some of it, but I don't remember how much.
I think there's like a clip or 2 on my, VO reel that I
Yeah.
used, but yeah, I remember back in the day, I subscribed to Animax while I was in Hong Kong, and then I had a DVD recorder set up, and I would record a bunch of the episodes, and then I would burn it to a DVD, and then later put it onto my computer, and then YouTube, and then all of a sudden it started getting taken down left, right, and
Oh.
center when I would put it up on YouTube, and
Mm-hmm. That happens.
so
Now I was doing a little digging around on wikis. I saw on some wikis about Doctor Slump because we've talked about that. I did a
mhm.
whole video about it. Um, Sources are saying that Omni did both the 80s and 90s series with 23 episodes each because it says that it came from you. Is that accurate?
Uh, it could be.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we did a shitload of those episodes, and I
Hmm.
can't remember what years they were from, but they were the older versions definitely, but I'm pretty sure that we did multiple ones, both, it sounds right to say '80s and '90s version, but, again, you know, there were a lot of those ones that were redone and like, when we did, Kimba the White Lion and things like that, which was like the original Lion King.
Yeah.
Uh, we did a lot of the '80s versions in English, and it never saw the light of day, on, outside of Asia
Yeah.
and things like that, and I think that that happens a lot. So I don't think that there is any footage of Dr. Slump out there, the one that
None.
I did. So,
None. I wish. That's why I like helping try to at least preserve the information,
yeah.
if not help to jog someone's memory or get in touch with someone that does have it. And it's like, oh, yeah, I have this, or hey, I know about this. If you had the chance to voice any character or be on any project, what would you choose?
Oh, if I could be on any project,
Yeah.
well, then I want to be on something big. I want to be on The Simpsons.
I was just going to say, I've heard The Simpsons
Yeah.
a few times now.
Yeah. I mean, why go small? Why be like, oh, there was an obscure little anime of a show that I heard that they're doing, and it might be on, streaming. So no, go big or go home. I want, yeah. Stick me on Animaniacs. Stick me on
Yeah,
on
so
The
any
Simpsons.
casting directors listening, there is a person perfect for The Simpsons.
Yeah, they're all tuning in.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly.
no, go big or go home. Yeah, I'd love some of those big ones. That'd be
That's
great.
awesome. And then what's on the horizon for you, either voice acting or otherwise?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm doing a lot of auditions on a daily basis. So, I just had a live action short film that came out that I posted some scenes for online, which was nice. And just continuing to follow the Hollywood dream, audition your butt off every single day, and then every once in a while things pay off.
Yeah. What words of wisdom do you have for prospective actors or anyone else in this field of work?
Well, if you are starting off, you just have to be humble about the fact and realize that you need to go into it knowing that you know absolutely nothing about voice acting, that you have a lot of learning to do, no matter how much theater you've done, no matter how much acting you've done, or no matter how much anime you love watching and think your mom, your brother, your sister tell you got funny, silly voices and you would be great as a voice actor. You just have to be humble enough to know that you have a lot of training to do if somebody
Yeah.
wants to get into this. And even myself, I've been doing this for, what, oh God, I don't know, 14, 15 years now. I still take lessons and classes and workshops,
Mhm.
sometimes in person, sometimes, especially nowadays over Zoom. Um, it's not something that you ever stop studying and learning about, and it's an ongoing process. So, you just have to realize that, and the other thing is that, there was a as my another one of my heroes, Jonathan Winters, once said, "If your ship doesn't sail in, swim out to it." You gotta do what you gotta do in order to make it happen. You can't just idly sit by. You have to take
Sorry.
risks. Yeah, take risks and go out there and just work hard for it.
Anything you want to advertise? I know you said you're on Instagram. Anything else? Any projects you have?
No, not really. That's about it. Nothing I wanna
Okay.
advertise at the moment, but yeah, go check it out. Check me out on Instagram, and, I'm pretty horrible at all the other stuff, all the other,
It's all good.
um, public, yeah, social media stuff
Yeah.
will do.
And let me know next time you're in Ohio, and I'll buy you dinner.
Right on. What part of Ohio are you at again?
Columbus.
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah, go check out a Shadowbox show. I mean, I think we
Heck
talked
yeah.
about this, right?
Yeah.
That's where the theater I was working at before, but yeah.
Yeah.
Tell
But
them Mike Pizzuto sent you.
yeah, I was gonna say, Sasuke, hey, do you know
They
Michael
might get
Pizzuto?
you. Yeah, tell them Mike Pizzuto sent you, and I bet you they'll give you a discount. There you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. Have a wonderful day. I will let you know before this goes live. It's going to be sometime next year.
Cool. Thanks, brother. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye. Michael Pizzuto is still doing voice acting in California, one of his latest roles being Professor Maisel in the anime Spriggan, dubbed by VSI. You can check that out on Netflix in the US. You can also check out Michael on his website, michaelcpizzuto.com. Thank you to Michael for doing this interview, and thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please be sure to rate this podcast 5 stars and subscribe via your favorite podcast app to know first when an episode is posted. If you want to hear more info about English dubs, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/@yuiharuhara. Here's my guest next time on English Voiceover in Asia.
Hi, my name is Charles Glover.
If you're an actor that has worked in Asia and would like to be a guest on the podcast, please send an email to yuiharuhara@gmail.com. If you're a listener and would like to know when I have upcoming guests, please follow me on Twitter @yuiharuhara or stay tuned to my YouTube community tab. From there, you'll be able to ask guests questions that may be featured in their interview. Until next time, take care.